Hey everyone, welcome back here to the channel and to another video. Today I thought we could look at the typical house sale to see if we can make out what are the things that have to be paid and who has to pay for what, right? Is it the buyer or is it the seller? And the reason for this video, of course, is if you are first time, especially if you are first time house buyer or seller, then I think this might help you understand a little better what are the typical things that you have to think about in terms of payment. So the first thing on the list I have here, guys, is estate agent's commission. I made a little list here just to make sure I don't forget anything. And there's about 9 items on the list, right? So let's just look at the first one, estate agent's commission. So guys, normally, when someone wants to sell their house, right, they'll go to an estate agent to help with advertising and finding a purchaser or buyer, right? And the estate agent will have a fee. Normally, it's a commission based, so maybe they take 3 or 5%, depends on the case. And now that fee is payable by the seller usually, right? So that's estate agent's commission payable by the seller. The next thing on the list here is the transferring attorney's fee. Once the deal has been signed, it has to go to an attorney who will make sure that transfer is registered in the name of the new owner, the person who bought it, right? So the attorneys obviously will have a fee for doing all of that, and we refer to that as the transferring attorney's fees. So the next thing on the list here, guys, is the purchase price, number 3. So obviously, as you can imagine, right, the purchase price is what you have to pay, what the buyer has to pay the seller for the house, what they've agreed, and the purchase price obviously is payable by the buyer. Okay, now let's move to the next thing on the list. Number 4, I have here initiation fees. Now, guys, this will not necessarily be in all cases applicable, but if the buyer is using a home loan to pay for the purchase price, right? Then you must be aware that the bank will have various fees, right? But the initiation fees of the bank is something to consider if you are buying using a home loan, right? That's obviously for the buyer. The next one here, number 5, also will only be applicable if you are using a home loan to buy the house, right? So this is the bond attorney's fees. Now, what is this? What does this refer to? Now, guys, if you are buying the house using the bank's home loan, then the bank will want some form of security registered over the property, and that is referred to as a mortgage bond. And we can do a video at some point where we explain how a mortgage bond works. But for purposes of this video, just to note that the bank will instruct their attorneys to simultaneously with the transferring attorneys registering transfer of the property into the new owner's name, to also register a mortgage bond in favor of the bank over the property. And that's the role of the bond attorneys appointed by the bank. But the fees, the costs of registering that bond is for the buyer, right? So the next thing on the list here is compliance certificates, guys. Now, the typical compliance certificates when it comes to buying and selling a house is BTEL compliance, electrical compliance, plumbing compliance, sometimes gas compliance if there's gas installations, and electric fencing compliance. Now, the thinking behind that is, let's look at plumbing and electrical, for example. That's the seller giving the buyer some assurance or guarantees that the electrical installations and the plumbing setup in the house is how it should be in terms of what the law requires it to be, basically, right? So what will happen is the seller will have a company or plumbers and electricians and the like come in to inspect the property and to issue these certificates, and there'll be a fee for that, right? And for the seller to keep in mind, if the plumbing and the electrical and the stuff, whatever they are coming to give compliance on, to inspect compliance on, if there isn't compliance, they will list what has to happen in terms of repair work or upgrades before they can issue compliance certificates. Now, oftentimes, the inspection fee and the certificate fee is minimal, but the fee for fixing what needs to be fixed before compliance certificates can be issued that can sometimes run up to quite a substantial amount. So a seller is responsible to pay for that, and that's something to be aware of if you are selling your house. Now, the next thing here on the list, number 7, is rights clearance certificate. Now, basically, as part of the process, the conveyancing process for transferring the ownership of the house, the conveyancers will need a rights clearance certificate from the local municipality. And what the municipality normally requires before they issue a rights clearance certificate is they want like an upfront payment of their rights account, right, or their municipal account. Normally 3 or 4 months in advance. So the attorneys, the conveyancers will request that from the local municipality and then will inform the seller of the amount that has to be paid, and the seller is responsible for that amount. The next thing here is bond cancellation costs. Now, this is the situation where, let's say, the seller who's selling his house, this when he bought the house or she bought the house, there was a bond, right? They bought it using a home loan from a bank, right? So the bank registered a mortgage over the property. Now they are selling the property and it's still bonded. Now that bond needs to be cancelled, right? So the bank who has the existing mortgage bond will then appoint a firm of attorneys to deal with cancelling the existing mortgage bond, and there'll be a fee or cost as far as that's concerned, and that will be for the seller, right? So number 9 here on the list, the last one is transfer duty. Now, this is a tax payable to SARS. Nowadays, I think for all sales above 1.1 million rand. So, and the person liable for that is the buyer, right? Normally, the transferring attorneys, when they send their invoice for their fees and the related costs to the buyer, they will also include whatever needs to be paid in terms of transfer duty. Now, guys, those are the normal things that will come up for a typical buying and selling of a house situation. And I hope this has helped make you understand a little better what are the various cost items and who is responsible for it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you back here next time. And until then, take care. Cheers for now.